What's up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another video from me, Dancing with Ghosts, or Josh, or whatever you want to call me, I don't care. So this video has been long requested by a couple people here and there, and by a couple people I mean like 2 or 3. These are my top 10 favorite Rush songs of all time, and no, these are not your dad's favorite Rush songs. I'm sorry, I like a different period of Rush than other people, so stick around to find them out, and that's going to happen like now. All right, so coming in at number 10, and yes, these are labeled in order. So 10 would be like, you know, one that I like a lot, but number 1 is going to be my top 10 favorite. So starting at number 10, we have Circumstances, the oldest song that will be on this list from the Rush catalog. Circumstances came off the Hemispheres album, and I don't know, it has this immediacy to it. It's frenetic in its energy. Geddy Lee's bass playing was all over the place, as is his bass playing on most of his songs. I don't know, it's not necessarily any of the lyrical content that really gets me, although they do sing in French, Geddy, at one point, which our beloved Neil wrote, as we all know. But yeah, I don't know. This was, Hemispheres was an album where they were it was like the last of their long-ass prog jams, in the sense that the song was going to take like 18 minutes of your time. I feel like on this song, they really boiled down the essence of early Rush into one song, because it's got the technicality in the verses on the bass guitar end, but then it's got that cool musical interlude, the all the same, we take our chances. I don't know, I just think it's a great song. I think it's the best song off of the Hemispheres album, Fight Me. That's my number 10 spot. All right, coming in at number 9, we have Test for Echo off the album of the same name. This is the opening track of that album, though if you watched my Rush tier list video, which you can see by clicking somewhere here, where I rated all of Rush's albums, I rated this album pretty poorly, and for good reason. Most Rush fans don't like this album, and that's for, again, good reason. This song is a sparkling gem of a mess of songs that can be called dated at best. They have a song about the internet, where they used all the cliches and internet jargon of that day to describe being on the internet. But this song, Test for Echo, and I feel like this album as a whole is almost a concept album in and of itself, of that time, of the 90s, of the things that were going on. In fact, to me, the imagery of Test for Echo, just as a sentiment, is they're this band that maybe feels like a little, because this album came out in 1996, and they obviously were one of the powerhouse bands from the 70s. So they're kind of, Test for Echo to me is kind of like, we're putting out an echo, a radar, to see like who's out there, what can I relate to. And this song, outside of having just a badass guitar riff opening up, when the song really kicks in, it's got one of those really cool like Alex Lifeson guitar lines. The lyrics for me, which is weird because lyrics don't normally do anything for me one way or another. Neil is like at his most biting here. You won't see him this biting until Snakes and Arrows, which sadly none of the songs off of that album made it onto this list. But I mean, he's got lyrics like, some kind of trouble on the sensory screen, the TV. Camera curves over caved-in cop cars. Bleacher creatures, would-be desperados, clutch at plausible deniability. Don't touch that dial, we're in denial until the showcase trial on TV. Now you have to think the O.J. Simpson trial was fresh in people's minds at this point. Some kind of pictures on the Sense-o'Clock news. Miles of yellow tape, silhouetted chalk lines. Tough-talking hood boys and pro-team logo knockoffs conform to uniforms of some corporate entity. This was deep shit that Neil was like getting at, and he nailed it. Like this, like Neil doesn't get so on the nose with his lyrical content outside of songs like maybe Superconductor, where he is basically breaking down how the music industry works and how pop stars are formed. Like he's basically like just putting the whole like sensationalistic entertainment news media on blast on this song, and it's done in such a brilliant way. some kind of drama live on satellite, hidden camera coverage from the crime scene to the courtroom. That was becoming very popular at that time. Nail-biting hood boys in borrowed ties and jackets, clutching at the straws of respectability. It's like, damn, Neil! Just fucking throwing it down. And I will say this about the songs coming up in this list, but the production was like, when Rush stepped into the 21st century, the production on this sounded just as heavy, just as, relevant as any of the hard rock bands at the time. In fact, I would say this song, Test for Echo, sounds a lot like Tool in the verses. In fact, I feel like Tool almost ripped off a riff in the verse of this song and did it later on their 2001 album, Lateralis. I believe it might be the title track, Lateralis. Anyway, love this song, love the lyrics. Moving on. In at number 8, we have Leave That Thing Alone off of Rush's 1993 album, Counterparts. Now, I knew I had to pick one of Rush's purely instrumental songs. It's kind of a tradition for them. They do an instrumental song every 2 or 3 albums. It's not on every album, but they do. They are popular for their instrumental tracks. The most obvious one being YYZ, to honor the Canadians. I'm going to pronounce it the way that Canadians say Z, YYZ. And it was a toss-up. But if I'm going strictly by songs that are my favorite, not your favorite, not the critic's favorite, Josh's favorite Rush songs, my favorite instrumental song is Leave That Thing Alone. It has this very beautiful, very forlorn sounding guitar lead. And man, that bass slide, bro, that boo. That bass line is so fucking tasty. It makes that whole song. And Alex Lifeson's high up kind of great instrumental. Just love it. I knew I had to pick one of the instrumentals. And that's the one I choose. Although it was a fucking toss-up for YYZ, but I don't know, it's so obvious at this point. So yeah, moving on. All right, so in at number 7, we have Witch Hunt off of Moving Pictures, Rush's most commercially successful album. And I will say that Witch Hunt, again, like I said about Circumstances, it has this kind of immediacy to it. It has this, they have that whole like thing with like the angry mob kind of sounds at the beginning of the song. It's really building an atmosphere. And just the song itself, when the guitar finally comes in, the night is black without a moon. Like, come on, man. I'm in. This song is just badass. And then when it goes, and Neil is just like, the shit that Neil's doing at that part, I feel like he's got like a kick drum pedal on a cowbell because he's hitting this cowbell while he's doing all this two-handed drum stuff. Now I think I've seen him use that live. That whole thing that Neil does at the beginning of the song. And then the lyrics, like, quick to judge, quick to anger, slow to understanding. Again, Neil just being cerebral, the professor just like writing really intelligent lyrics. Like hate and fear go hand in hand. I mean, come on. Like, it's like he's just stating general truths of the world. God rest in peace, Neil. Witch Hunt is a great song, underrated song off of Moving Pictures, but I tend to be the guy that digs in the middle, in between all the hits of the Rush songs. I like the in-between ones. They're more interesting to me. In at number 6, guys, this is my list. So a lot of these songs are skewing towards the 80s stuff because, as I've always said on this channel, the 80s Rush is my favorite Rush, bar fucking none. So in at number 6, we have Available Light, which was off the 1989 album Presto. And this was the last track on the album. Most Rush fans, again, do not like this album. I will agree, I will admit the production is thin as fuck, especially on Alex's guitars. They sound as thin as like a fucking twine or a shoestring. But all that aside, this is when they were going more into their the adult contemporary rock, kind of finding their footing in the late 80s. Where do we go from here? What defines our style? And the producer had a lot to do with it too. I believe the producer of this album, I don't know his name, but I think they only used him on that one album. Although Roll the Bones production style sounds similar, yet a little bit more beefy. But Available Light is the melody. Geddy's melody on that song is fantastic. Not quite sure what the lyrics are about, but they sound they sound very pressing. They sound very immediate, and I like that. But really, this song's all about the melody. For the wind can carry all the somethings. I'm so bad at lyrics. And then the whole like in the available light, and then Alex's end guitar solo that he does, where it's not him just wanking like he did in the 70s. He's actually developing and taking his time to make these tasty kind of guitar things like. Love it. I hope you guys are enjoying all my falsetto facsimiles of actual Rush things. I hope you enjoy that. But fucking great song, super underrated. All right, up next we have in at number 5, After Image, the second song off the Grace Under Pressure album, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it is the second song. I don't know, just where I'm at in life right now, I just really like that song. This is where Rush were just starting to like get heavily into the synthesizer period, which I love that period of Rush. And this song just kicks in. You hear the Moog Taurus pedals front and center, very heavily heard in the song. I don't even know if Geddy ever plays any bass guitar in this song at all. I think it might just be bass synth pedals, which is great. I love his bass playing, but I love his synth playing too. He's always said that he's a mediocre synth player at best. I disagree. I think he wrote lines that mattered and didn't fuck about too much, because when you're a virtuoso, there's always that temptation. But I mean, the lyrical content of this song, someone who's passed away, that Neil is reminiscing about, lyrics are fucking beautiful. I feel the way you would. This just can't be understood. Like, I mean, the whole song has this very minor key vibe to it, which I'm a sucker for anything in minor keys. Just a great earlier Rush synth song. Love it. All right, in at number 4, we have Animate off of Rush's 1993 album Counterparts. So there's 2 songs off of Counterparts that have made it onto this list, which tells you I'm kind of a fan of their album Counterparts. This was the first track of that album, and when you hear Neil counting in 1, 2, 3, 4, and you hear those thick ass hairy drums, we have officially stepped into the 21st century with this song. All of Rush's recordings before this album sounded very much of their time. They sounded very thin, especially their 70s stuff before they were remastered. You gotta remember, if you go on Spotify right now and you pull up any of their songs, those are remastered. But before all the remastering stuff happened, all their 70s and 80s stuff sounded pretty thin, aside from the stuff that was very synth heavy, because let's just admit it, synthesizers take up a lot of room in the sonic spectrum, and it's hard to have a thin sounding record if you have a lot of synthesizer. But their 70s stuff sounded pretty thin unless you cranked it up really, really loud. Animate, off the album Counterparts was when they finally stepped into that new way of producing songs. You know, by this time, Nirvana, grunge, all that kind of stuff had been out. The production style, the game had been stepped up. They're using, triple rectifier amplifiers. Geddy's tone sounded fatter than it ever had. Neil's drums had that nice room reverb sound to it. Great song. I just really enjoy the song. I enjoy that organ in the background, that kind of like synthy organ that's going on over the wall of guitars that we are hearing for the first time. Just a great song, and it was the first song that I heard by them that kind of ushered me into their, hey, we are doing the new production style now. We're no longer doing that thin ass roll the bones presto style production. We are doing heavy, thick, saturated. So great song. In at number 3, very, very obvious pick, Tom Sawyer off of their 81 album Moving Pictures. Now, of course, this would be an obvious choice for any Rush fans list, but what can I say? This was such a bizarre little song. I mean, it opens up with this synth kind of with a boom. I mean, yes, the production sounds a little dated. Like, you can tell it's a song that wasn't recorded yesterday, but as far as the song itself, it's such a unique gem. Nothing sounds quite like this song back then and even now. And if your drum parts are so tasty that I'm air drumming just without even realizing it, I'm listening to Tom Sawyer and I'm just like, like, that's how you know you did a fucking killer ass drum track. Neil shines on this track. Everybody shines on this track. Geddy shines on this track when Alex Lifeson's doing his guitar solo and Geddy is mimicking what he played on the synth, but he's doing it on bass. Like, it's so cool. This is just a cool song, and that synth line, when I first heard that on radio, that's when I was like, I'm interested in this band. Like, I want to know more. And I would not technically be a Rush fan if I had not heard this song first. I mean, this was a song that got me into Rush because I heard, here's a classic rock band that is doing something that sounds different, that they're breaking the rules. They're not doing this boring ass AC/DC pentatonic minor shred on guitar with this basic ass song structure that I've heard 5 billion times. They're doing something different. So if it wasn't for Tom Sawyer and how different it was, then I don't know if I would have gotten into Rush. So there you go. In at number 2, Middletown Dreams off of Rush's 1985 album Power Windows. This is a deep cut, to be fucking sure. Not many people even know of this song. If you're even a mild Rush fan, you really have to be a hardcore Rush fan to know about this song. I love it. I love this whole album, Power Windows, aside from Territories. That song is kind of lame. But this whole album was they were in the thicket of 80s synth cheese, but they did it their own way, and it was creative, it was explorative, it was experimental. I loved it. This song, it just starts out with that big like burst of the and they got this like sequence synth thing going on, and then Alex is like having to try harder and harder to find his place as a guitar player during their synth era. That's why I think Alex hates the synth stuff so much, because there wasn't, like when you have all these synth melodies taking up where the guitar should be at, what do you do as a guitar player? So there's minimal guitar in these albums, but that doesn't bother me because the greater good, people. It's not about stroking your fucking ego. It's about exploring, growing, and they weren't afraid to do that until later, when they were totally afraid to do that and made stuff that didn't sound like anything. Clockwork Angels. Anyway, this song's fantastic, both musically and lyrically. I love the synth work. I love all of the vocals by Geddy, and then the lyrics. I mean, good Lord, who can't relate to the Middletown Dreams? What do you think that song's about? Middletown Dreams are about people who live in middle whatever country and basically want to do more and fail, and they just fantasize about what could be, but they just don't go that extra mile to make it happen. Neil wrote about this a lot in his lyrics. Losing It off of Signals is an example of that. There are many examples where Neil had this fascination with suburban alienation that I myself have the same fascination with. And that's why I love songs like Synchronicity Part 2 by The Police, or a song that's coming up later on this list. I'm pretty sure you probably know what I'm talking about at this point. I don't know. I love the tapping into that suburban alienation and feeling like there's got to be more than this neighborhood that I live in, and this mom and dad, and this predictable, boring life that I'm stuck in. And Middletown Dreams pretty much covers that. In at number 1, my favorite Rush song of all time, fucking Subdivisions, man. What can I say? It's got that beautiful sounding Oberheim XA synthesizer throughout the song. The dun 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 dun. I'm playing the drums too as I'm doing the synth. Dun. I mean, the synth on this song sounds really cool. They did it in a way that wasn't so like most synth bands back in the day, they were using, in the 80s at least, they were using synthesizers as like backup instruments to, you know, like you like take a Simple Minds or, you know, Human League or whatever. There was like 1,000 synth parts, but what Rush did was Geddy Lee said, okay, instead of playing the bass on a bass guitar, I'm going to do a synth part instead. And so there wasn't like a billion like synth things layered into this song. There was just this simple synth pattern that was very fat tonally that took up the speakers, that when you cranked it up, that synth filled up the entirety of the sonic spectrum. So it sounded full, sounded great. Neil was doing some of the most tastiest drumming on this song. This is one I air drum to all the time. And Alex was laying back. You know, this is still that time where he had to find his place. I was okay with it until his fucking solo. The solo on the song that he does is one of my favorite solos he's ever done, ever. And it's not a complicated solo. When he hits, when it's building up and Neil does this drum fill and he hits those harmonics on the guitar, I get goosebumps every time to this day. I will never get tired of Subdivisions. And then when Geddy is like, you know, doing the singing the verses, he's playing the synth. But then when he goes to the chorus, and every time he does it live too, it like gives me goosebumps. He's playing the synth, and then he like goes to his bass guitar for the chorus, and he does that feel that doom Subdivisions in the high school halls, dude. It's so fucking cool. When I heard this song on the radio after already hearing Tom Sawyer, I'm like, this is Rush, isn't it? We're talking, I'm like 13 at the time. And I'm like, God damn it, this song is so fucking good. And Tom Sawyer was good too. I found out what song Subdivisions was on, and it was Signals, 1982. That's the first Rush album I ever bought, was Signals. Just because Subdivisions was on it. And you know what? The rest of the album did not fucking disappoint. That whole album is really great, aside from there might be one song on there. I think Digital Man, I'm iffy on that one, but everything else, even the goofy one where they're going to NASA, it's called Countdown or whatever. I like that song too. It's got a cool, you know, little synth thing in it. But yeah, those are my top 10 favorite Rush songs. They're certainly not your favorite top 10 Rush songs. I know that for a fact, because nothing from 2112 or even Farewell to Kings and before that is on this list. You know why? Because that shit sounds dated as fuck. The only reason you like those songs are because you grew up listening to it, or that was the first thing you heard. But tell me musically, outside of the whole concept album thing, why 2112 is such a great song, like sweet, or I know it's like a 22-minute thing, but like there's nothing about 2112 that like wows me. It's just I mean, I love the B-side of 2112 way more than the A-side, because like the B-side you got like Something for Nothing and Lessons or Teachers or whatever it's called, and Passage to Bangkok. Way more interesting on the B-side than it is on the A-side. And then you got their first album, which is pretty much them finding their sound, kind of being Led Zeppelin-y, rip-offy. Fly By Night, it's okay, got some good songs. Caress of Steel, I'm just not going to talk about Caress of Steel. So yeah, Farewell to Kings, fine album, but sounds very much of the time, sounds very much a 70s prog album. So yeah, that's my list, and I'm proud of it. That's where I'm at right now. I could do a top 20 easily, but if I had to boil it down, these are my top 10 favorite Rush songs. Tell me, what are your top 10 favorite Rush songs? Leave it in the comments. Argue with me. Tell me I'm stupid. Tell me I suck because I don't like the classic Rush period. Because you're not a real Rush fan unless you like 2112 and blah, blah, blah. I fucking hate that narrative. They're more than just fucking 2112. And oddly enough, there wasn't any songs off of Permanent Waves on this list either. But, I don't know. I just like what I like, man. I like their 80s synth period. Sue me. Have a good rest of your night.